Welcome to the Level Up Your Band podcast, episode 92. Hello and welcome back to the Level Up Your Band podcast. My name is Gavin Patterson and I'm here with Julian Pombo.
Hello.
How are we?
Yeah, I'm good. Not bad. It's been a busy old week. I feel like I've been in here far too often now.
Yeah, you were in here yesterday.
For twice.
For 4 hours, and then you came in again last night. You're in just now, and you're in later on as well. Why don't you just move in?
Yeah, you know what? I'm pretty sure I could make an extension or get an extension built in.
A tent.
Yeah. I mean, I'm gonna live in style. I'll just corner off that bass amp.
Aye.
Put a wee bed in. Just sleep there.
Yeah. So yeah, your week's been busy.
It's been really busy.
Gigs.
Rehearsing for gigs. We got a Christmas run with my band, with a new singer. So because our current singer is as of tomorrow, after tomorrow, Saturday, which is our last gig with her. She's away on maternity leave. So that's her until like probably, I don't know, May, June maybe. You never know. So it's gonna be it's just loads of rehearsals for that. But then again, like these 2 months, like November, December, I feel are always the busiest for musicians. Christmas things going on, and stuff like that. So
used to be for me, not so much now. I mean, in the last 4 years, the busiest month for me is July and August.
Oh yeah,
Always,
like May, June, July, August are pretty busy.
Yeah, I used to have quite a lot of Christmas gigs, but not so much anymore. I don't really. We do a couple of Christmas parties, like 2 maybe, 3. But like 10 years ago when I was in lots of bands, we did lots of like Christmas concerts and stuff, unpaid, of course.
Of course.
And I would have loads of them. Like I would have like 5 or 6 or 7 Christmas concerts a week or something ridiculous.
Yeah.
Like it was just mad.
Same while I was at uni, which is such a we used to have a gig. I don't know if they still do it anymore. We used to be called Swinging into Christmas. I'm going to give you a bit of editing work. And we changed it to Swinging into Shitmas because it was just so bad. It was such an awful gig.
Oh, no. Yeah, the Christmas tunes, rolling out the old favourites. It's just
anyway,
cringe.
we're not here to talk about how awful this isn't Level Up Your Christmas.
There we go.
Podcast. There you go. I got
you
one.
got
That's not the best. It's not my. I definitely peaked at Level Up Your Bandwidth.
That was
Anyway,
so yeah.
Today we're going to talk about the episode is I don't know if it's going to be called this, but lessons we learned the hard way.
Yeah.
Yes. Don't know if that's the final working title.
But the easy way, the hard way. Easy way being someone tells you on a podcast what not to do and you don't do it, or tells you what to do and you do it. The hard way being you accidentally do it wrong and then find out.
And then you find out and you feel like an idiot.
Yeah, so this is
which I feel has been most of my life actually.
Everybody's the same.
Everybody. Yeah.
So yeah, this is going to be about all the things I could think about. Things that I did wrong, and then rectified, like the outcomes of what doing things wrong and where that leads. So this is in no particular order. These are just the ones that I thought of when I was coming up with it. So yeah, so I've got here striving to be the next big thing. So where that comes from was when I was about 17 or 18, I joined a crappy wee metal band, as they were. That's a technical term, you know.
Yes.
Everyone's been in a crappy wee
Uh,
genre band.
sometimes people I associate with call them wee man bands.
Wee man bands.
Aye.
I don't know if it was that. It was just we were just like breaking into a scene, and we were just trying to do something in that scene.
Yeah.
And a lot of it was copying other trends and stuff, and trying to find your own way. I mean, that's where you've got to get started.
Aye, wee man band.
I suppose, yeah, it's a wee man band.
Yeah, it's a band of wee guys, basically.
Yeah.
By we don't mean actually tiny.
Oh no, one of them was particularly tiny.
But we don't mean like a band of leprechauns. You know, just young guys.
I don't think he listens to this podcast, but I know a friend of his does. So I don't even know if you'll know that I'm referencing this person, but hey ho, it's fine.
Hey ho, the witches. Talking about small people.
Sorry. So when we joined, when we made that band, and we were like hanging out in the guitarist's house, and we were like, oh, we just need to, like, you know, get the right guitar tone, and we need to like write the right music, and like we had massive grand plans. Like, oh, you wouldn't believe, we were going to write novels, and literally novels, like based on the lyrics of our album. We were going to write concepts and write a screenplay and all this. Oh my god, it went so deep.
How progressive of you? how prog rock of you?
It was so, we went so, like, this is stuff we were going to do, like we were going to completely change the world, right, with our music. This was like surfing the internet to try and find VST amps that would sound like our favorite bands, like downloading yet another free plugin to try and get that authentic metal guitar tone. We never found it, evidently.
No.
But yeah, just we were chasing after like an idea of where we wanted to be, like this, like stadium playing kind of big heavy metal bands, just rather than just looking at what we actually were. It's good to have a dream, and it's good to have something to look up to and aspire to be, but occasionally that would go a bit too far. You know, we're picking out what was going to be on the projectors behind us at, you know, Wembley Arena, you know, before we even had like 5 tunes. Like, do you know what I mean? Like,
yeah,
we're getting a wee bit ahead of ourselves. Like,
yeah.
I don't know if you have any.
I think it's just generally with that, it's I think whenever anybody starts doing music, or any kind of artistic thing, art, or, you know, painting, or, you know, everybody wants to be the next the next big thing, you know, like the next Michelangelo, or like the next whatever, you know, Jacob Pastorius, you know, big groundbreaking rather, scene changing, I guess.
That's the one.
But you know, so like, yeah, and of course, you know, your parents want that for you as well, you know, which leads on to another point later on. But like, yeah, I don't necessarily remember all my grand plans, but I remember going through some like really ridiculous kind of like, because obviously starting out with like classical flute, I had this whole idea of like, yeah, man, I'm gonna be like a soloist and
virtuoso.
This and that. Virtuoso, yeah. It's gonna be amazing. And then it changed to going to work really hard on my piccolo and get a piccolo seat. And then it changed to I'm gonna become a film composer, and then I'm here now. I think honestly, like the best thing to do, I feel like for some people it works to have aspirations like that, but and I think it comes from like, a lot of famous, successful artists, were like, oh yeah, I always wanted, always talking about how they were destined for like great things or whatever. But I think it's honestly like the more grounded approach is to not do what you're doing for the fame or the recognition that you're going to get from it. Best thing you can do, best thing that I learned anyway, is that you should be doing it for the sake of enjoying the, the medium, which I always do try and catch myself, because I feel like I maybe talk some pretty airy fairy stuff sometimes, because my mind is just like that, it's geared that way, all that philosophical thinking mumbo jumbo nonsense, but what was I saying? Yeah, it's better to take a more grounded approach and do what you're doing. Do work with your band for the pure joy of being in a band. Playing music for the pure joy of just making music. I was listening to an interview on the way up. It was I didn't catch his name because I caught the middle of the interview, but it was a Paralympian basketball player. He's 48. And he was talking about how, competing, it isn't, or like playing basketball is got nothing to do with winning medals. He doesn't care about winning medals. It's just the pure joy of playing the sport, because it's fun.
Yeah.
Yep. So I think that's the best way to approach it.
Yeah, it's a self-improvement thing as well. Like, because whenever I did athletics and back in school days, it wasn't so much about beating the other person, although sometimes it was. You get fixated on it a little bit. But I think the greatest challenge is trying to beat your personal best.
Yeah.
Because that way you can actually see that you've grown.
Mm-hmm.
Because, if you suddenly start beating someone else, it doesn't necessarily mean that you're better. It could mean that they're out of shape.
Yeah.
So like seeing
or they had a bad day.
I jumped like 4 meters 10 in the long jump, and I was like, oh, that's really good, but I want to push that. And then it's 4.5 meters, and then eventually 5 meters, and it's like I'm seeing an improvement in myself. I'm not comparing myself to anyone else, and that's quite a rewarding thing. But that's exactly what I should have done, and eventually did do as a musician. I'm thinking back to that crappy wee metal band. If we had just spent more time on not trying to achieve something that we don't know how to achieve, why don't we just try and make our music sound better? Why don't we just try and deal with what we've got? Don't try and have the big, when we're going on tour and we've got a full rig and we're going out with lorries and tour buses, and like, get your head out of the clouds. Like, where are you right now? Like, what do we have right now? Yeah. We were writing our book before we had finished the album. You know? It's a bit weird.
No, totally. And it was something popped in my head. I was just like, I should definitely say that. And so sometimes having those grand plans, it can almost like diminish the little improvements that you're making at the time. Depending on what your personality type is like, and having those kind of grand plans might end up making things worse for you in the long run, because it's just suffocating.
Your little incremental progress doesn't seem that big when you're saying, I am not, touring 50 countries.
Yeah. Honestly, it should just be, it took me a long time to get to that point. Like, I'm 26. I'm going to be 27. And it's only just, over lockdown basically that I was just like, music should just primarily shouldn't be about, recognition and fame and how much money you're making. Those things come later. You should be really focusing on the joyful, fun aspect of it. Really.
Yep.
And I think that goes for a lot of things as well, not just music. Everything else you do in your life. There you go.
So
Level Up Your Life podcast.
There we go. So the next one, this was a big one for me. I don't know about you.
And it's such there's no such, that doesn't really exist.
Yeah.
It's just, the way I see it, it's just, anyway.
So fighting to play in reputable venues because we'll get picked up. So when I was writing this, I think I sent a message to you saying I'm writing this thing and it's giving me PTSD because it's just taking me back to like college. Like
honestly,
after school.
when I read through this, I was just like, wow, I've experienced all of these things.
So the sad thing about this one is this was I'm thinking when I'd left school and I was going to college. This was a thing that's kind of in people's minds, even people who know nothing about music. Mm-hmm. They'll say, "Oh, you'll need to play there. Oh, keep doing what you're doing. Someone will pick you up." Right? This is this.
I get that on the way. See, when I'm at gigs, when I'm at venues, right? I always get that. I'm like, go to the bathroom to like get changed or something after I've finished setting up my stuff. Some old guy is just like, "Oh, keep doing what you'll get picked up." I'm like, no, I'm not gonna get picked up at a wedding. Shut up.
Yeah. Or you see that one. You get it at weddings as well. Yeah. Have you got a card there? Oh, thanks very much. Oh, I'll keep this so that when you're rich and famous, I'll say I got a card off of you. I'm like, oh, cheers. We're just playing like.
Do you understand what this band is for? We're not here to be rich. Well, here to get rich, not and famous in a sense, but not in the way that you think.
It's just so funny. So I was going to college, and that was some of the lecturers at the college would perpetuate that myth. They would say, "Oh, you never know who's in the audience. You could," and to some sense, that's true. You don't know who's in the audience. But
if you take it even further, you never know who's going to be in the audience.
Yeah,
sorry.
But they set up this false expectation because you think, "Oh, that means that if I keep doing enough gigs and going to enough prestigious venues, eventually I'm going to get picked up by some guy." I can think in only one finger how many times that's happened to someone I know. And it was a complete and utter fluke. A complete and utter fluke.
Yep.
And it literally doesn't happen. It's so astronomically improbable.
Yeah.
That you may as well just forget it.
Yeah, certainly in Scotland anyway, I think you're probably you're going to have a better chance if you're in London, but who wants to live in London?
Not me.
Not me. If you do, that's cool.
You should go there.
Go there then.
So they would come into college. These lecturers or speakers, they would come in and say, make sure you always give your best performance because there could be someone, scouts, what do you call them? Label scouts are coming out to look at scout bands.
Talent scouts.
Scouts. I'm like, what is this? The 1980s? Like,
yeah.
And that was back in 2009, 2010, 2011, 10, 11.
Yeah.
That even then that had stopped happening for like at least 5 years, maybe 10 years. It wasn't really happening then. Like now it's even worse. So I don't know what it's like now, but in these colleges, are they still talking about this stuff? But we're talking like I was at college where most of the lecturers were sort of ex-musicians. They were like big in the 80s.
Right.
the 90s, touring, with big names, and they kind of settled down, can't be bothered touring anymore, and got a job in a local college, that kind of thing. So a lot of their advice was, getting on to the next one, outdated. So taking outdated advice from an older generation of musicians, that's directly.
Yeah, and sometimes you need to be careful because it can even be quite. The thing that's sad about this is that they always mean well, but sometimes like the obviously but sometimes the advice that you're given can sometimes be incredibly
damaging,
detrimental to your career. I've got an example which I think I've mentioned before.
Go for it.
But I'll reiterate it again. I was recording bass for an artist. I'm keeping all of this anonymous. I'm going to do the best that I can. But I was recording bass for somebody, sort of like a band kind of thing. And I had suggested to them at the time, hey, we should track the songs live in the studio. The studio's got enough space. Right. We should definitely do that. And they went, oh yeah, that sounds like a good idea. I'll think about it. And then they came back to me. They said that they'd spoken to somebody else who basically roasted them almost for like the hubris of, recording it live instead of doing it, part by part. I just thought it was ridiculous. I was like, listen, mate, you're a really good musician. Probably, actually, no, not even probably, definitely better than the guy that gave you the advice. And if we had done it like that, we would have. I think the tracks ended up sounding good regardless because the songs are good. I think, but I think that they would have sounded even more energetic, more organic, if we had just done it the old-fashioned way. Like the person used the example of like, oh, you're gonna live track it. You're not Rolling Stones. You're not the Beatles. And I'm like, do you know who the Rolling Stones and the Beatles were? Just a bunch of lads.
Nobody.
Like literally,
they were nobody.
Like learn guitar off their auntie.
Yeah.
Exactly. By ear, like no formal training whatsoever, and they can just go in because it's not, they're just doing music thing naturally. Anyway, there's a good example of like some really terrible advice
when taking advice from people, older generation of musicians who maybe aren't in the scene anymore and they've done their thing. Maybe it was 20, 30, 40 years ago. The advice that I take from people like that, and it's valuable advice.
Yeah.
It can be valuable advice if it's general. So if it's things like some advice I got off of this, I'm thinking of a particular lecturer in college. Advice I always remember that he gave out, which was very general and doesn't matter what era you're in, this is always good. When you're young, say yes to everything. Right? So when you're really young and you're trying to get started out, say yes to everything and then cull.
Yeah.
So get in every band and then cull off the ones you don't want. Rather than being selective in the ones that you choose to start with. Yeah. That's a great way, because what happens is you get completely overwhelmed with music and overwhelmed with choice, and then you have you're in the position to stop doing the one that you don't want to do. It made so much sense.
If you're really selective, you could make a choice which seems pretty good at the time, and then you actually spend some more time with that band and you're like, oh no.
But that same person terrible. Giving that good advice would say, oh, don't waste your time with downloads and streaming. Just get your CD sorted out and and you know, and put up posters, and that social media is just a gimmick, you know, that.
Yeah.
But this was 10 years ago, obviously.
Uh-huh.
Even at the time, it was bad advice. Because like we had back then, MySpace was just sort of, it was becoming slightly less popular. People still had Bebo a little bit, but Facebook was only just starting to become popular in like 2010.
Yep, I remember.
2009, 2010. People were starting to get into Facebook in a big way.
Yeah.
And that was when
Facebook events and things.
Yeah, it was all starting to explode then. And they were like, it's just a gimmick. It'll die out in a year. Wrong.
So wrong.
There were those types from back then. They were so against releasing your music for free. You know, putting streaming and all this stuff.
Yeah.
Because they grew up in a business model totally different, where you went on tour to promote your music, whereas now you release your music for free to promote your tour. You know, that whole thing. It's all flipped on its head. So if it's specific industry things or advice that is very, very time dependent, as in the time era dependent, take it with a pinch of salt. But if it's general things like practice your instrument or brush your teeth, you know, just stuff that's, you know, tried and tested through the ages. It's not time dependent. It's just good advice, you know.
Yeah.
So yeah, another one was get signed. That was a big one. Like, you need to get signed.
At this point, you might as well start your own label.
We need to get signed. Getting signed, like, I didn't know what getting signed meant, really. I just thought, like in the movies, you get picked up at a gig, and then you get your big break, and then
some sleazy guy with sunglasses comes up to you and goes,
"You're gonna be a star."
Yeah, I'm gonna make you famous.
And then you just sit back, and all the work gets done for you. You just turn up at your gig, do your thing, and you're a big star. That's what I thought it was, but turns out it's just basically they do all the admin. They use the money that they've collected to pay for that, and you end up getting more successful, and then the money you generate goes to them. Basically, they're just admin, really. It's because it was really difficult to do all the things that a label used to do, really difficult things. Now you can do those difficult things fairly easily by yourself on the internet. Until a point where you can't manage the numbers.
Yeah.
Basically, you can do it up until you get so many fans and like so much of a following that you can't physically deal with the numbers. You're talking tens, hundreds of thousands of fans, you know, on websites, crashing servers, all this weird stuff happening, ticket sales, booking things. There's too much. Then you need to go and get help. And that's where a label comes in. You have to think about it totally different now. And labels don't go looking for talent like they used to.
No.
What they do is they scout, if they scout at all, for bands that are already established. Because they don't want to spend time building up a band from scratch. Oh, look at this talented person. Let's just throw all our money at it, because it's too much of a risk nowadays.
And it's really sad in a way, because that's how you got, like, you know, like music in like the 60s and the 70s, so innovative, because it was like the bunch of the guys that were like basically running the music industry had no clue what they were doing. They were just like, they just had money to burn. They were like, you know, for example, example that comes to mind is Tubular Bells, right? Richard Branson, Mike Oldfield. Richard Branson knows nothing about music, even to this day. At that time, when he signed Mike Oldfield, he listened to some Cliff Richard, but he didn't really like listen to anything much. Like, had no clue, and he just had money, and he was like, right, I'm gonna start a label, you know, and Mike Oldfield was his first artist, and basically put him up in a castle with like a built-in studio, and was like, go do stuff, see you later. and you are getting some really wacky, cool, innovative stuff now.
Yeah.
Now, although it's changing because the internet is so open, so like anybody can kind of like become quite big, you know. Really, it's there's more
Choice and
variables
variety.
now,
Yeah.
you know. But for a long time, it was just like, no, this band's too big a risk. They're not writing the kind of music we know sells. So we're gonna keep writing music with these 5 guys from Sweden. I'm joking. They're not all from Sweden, but like, you know, these like 5 songwriters, and then put stuff out there.
Yep.
You know, so
Yeah, it's funny.
yeah.
So yeah, outdated advice. So taking advice is another advice one. Taking advice from family or friends who know nothing about music or the music industry.
Oh yeah.
I'm trying to alluding to the that's not a real job. That kind of thing. That's not real work.
Yes.
It's also don't you need to go and get yourself signed? It's the same thing again. Don't you need to do this?
Or sometimes just coming up with the weirdest, wackiest stuff. You know, here's a good one. This, you know, oh, this football team is quite popular. You should write a piece of music for them as their sort of like theme or something. I'm like, no.
Who said that?
I think it was my mum or my dad at some point. They have some. I mean, I love them. I don't know if they listen to the podcast, but mum and dad, like when it comes to music stuff, you give out some pretty wacky advice. Life advice, okay, yeah, done a good job parenting me. Like, you know, I guess. I'm digging myself a massive hole here.
Massive.
But yeah, there you go. That was one. Just weird, wacky stuff that you know. Don't be afraid to just say no.
Yeah,
to friends and family.
Yeah, because it's hard. Like they'll give you advice because they care about you, but let's be honest, the sum total of their musical knowledge comes from movies.
Unless your parent is in the music industry and is gigging right now and doing things, don't listen to them. You know,
just understand that they're looking out for you. You're in their best interest.
Yeah.
But doesn't mean their advice is sound. Again, if it's general life stuff, then yeah. But if it's actual specific advice about things in the music industry,
like relating it to like real life experience we've had, we were getting told by so many people, friends and family, Eriska should get a singer.
Oh yeah,
and we nearly took them seriously at one point, and I'm so glad that we ended up dropping it. You know, and it's just because, well, instrumental music, I guess, is quite a niche thing. Not a lot of people listen to just instrumental music, you know. So they were like, well, you know, we mostly listen to songs with lyrics, so they should get themselves a singer. I would happily work with a singer at some point, but
maybe
as our main vehicle of like, you know, sort of music making. No, just keep it instrumental. So if that's like there's an example. If you're like in a technical metal band or math rock or something where it's all instrumental and it's weird and wacky stuff, and they're like, oh, you should stop making that weird wacky music because you know nobody listens to it. What they're saying is, I don't listen to it.
Yeah,
you know. Then that you know. That's not good advice. Just leave it, you know.
No, because like it's good to take advice from people, obviously. And it's nice to get an outsider's perspective. But, but when it's uninformed,
sometimes you can glean a lot from like you know your punter's perspective.
Definitely.
So I'm not saying we're not saying totally discard it, because there's always a little nugget of truth hiding in everything. So you just have to sort of look for it. And
I've said this before. The one that really annoyed me was because Eriska, our band, was and is kind of Scottish folk. So it's for the American listeners, of which there are many. Apparently, 2-1. We were talking about this before the podcast. So for every one person from the UK that listens to the podcast, 2 people listen from the US. Who knows why? It's the sexy Scottish accents, right? So, so we play Scottish folk music, which is it's traditional folky Celtic music, native to Scotland, mixed in with modern Anglified / American. It's because you're using I'm playing a drum kit which comes from jazz America.
Yeah,
which comes from the blues
I'm
and all
playing
that.
a bass guitar, which is basically an American instrument at this point.
Yep. We have a folky guitar playing, and it's mixed in with all these different types of styles. We've got a classical accordionist, so we've got a real mishmash of stuff, and we don't really identify so much with Scottish folk anymore. We would more call ourselves just instrumental music.
But I sometimes use, when I describe it to people, I use, rather than trad or Scottish, I use folk.
Yeah, I guess.
Like prog folk, I've described it to some people, and then people go, yeah, I understand that.
But the critique that really annoys me is they say, oh, you must do quite a lot of ceilidhs then. So a ceilidh is basically a disco or a dance, but it's Scottish.
Yeah,
it's
for you Americans, it's just like organized line dancing.
Yes,
basically, but we don't do it in a line.
We aren't a ceilidh band. We're just a band. Yeah,
we're just a band that plays music.
And then I'll say, no, we don't do ceilidhs. Oh, you're missing a trick there. You're missing a trick. I was like, that's not what we do.
Because then we would start a ceilidh band.
Yeah.
Like, what kind of stupid ceilidh dances are you going to dance? 7/8? Like, for goodness sake, they're all either 3/4 or 6/8 or 4/4. Like, for goodness sake.
So, poor advice.
Oh, awful advice. Anyway.
Okay, moving on. So, starting bands with people who you were fundamentally incompatible with on a personal level. So,
and here's the thing: you don't know sometimes. I've had this situation where I've started a band with somebody who I would consider a friend and friendly with, and I get on with them. But then you start working with them, and you're like, oh no, because just because you're friends with someone doesn't mean that you aren't necessarily going to know how you work with them. I kind of learned this lesson early on when I was in school, and but it still catches you off guard sometimes because you never know. But I used to avoid working in like group classes with like my friends at school because I knew I would get nothing done. Right? Uh-huh. I knew that they were just going to mess about.
Yeah.
So I was just like, if I want to do well in this, I'm going to, join a group with people that I like and that I get on with, but that I know are going to get the job done, sort of thing.
Well, that's smart.
Yeah,
I wasn't that smart.
It's just I used to just bug me sometimes, like I noticed it around 5th year, 6th year, and so it's difficult. You never know. I was in a band with somebody who I was quite friendly with, and then getting to work with them, I was like, oh no, This is not good. You know, I think with like compatibility and stuff like that, I think sometimes you're better off just being in a band with people who aren't necessarily your friends to begin with at all. You know,
I know what you mean.
yeah,
The relationship's different.
Yeah, the relationship's totally different. I'm not saying that it should be all business. You know, obviously you want to be friendly, but you know, but if you're in a band and the band that you're in, you're all friends, that's great. I mean, like our band, I would consider everybody in that band friends of mine, you know. So, but I guess like before we started the band, I didn't even know you, and it was only through like practicing and gigging and stuff that I got to know you better, and everybody else in the band for that matter. So,
yep. But there were bands that I joined back when I was in my 20s.
Long ago now.
My early 20s. Yeah, it's like almost 10 years ago. That I really had no business being in. So just people that I should have listened to my first initial sort of reactions and just little hints. They give a little hints like, not sure about this person, and then something big happens, and you know the mask comes full off, and it's like, right, we see the true colors underneath. Many moments like that. I think I get onto that at some point. Yeah, I'll get into that a wee bit more, but it's knowing that, right, is this person or these people the type of people I want to hang around all the time if I'm in a band? It goes back to that old, that saying we always say is the good hang, good money, good music thing.
Yeah, which we got from Liam.
Liam, yeah. Shortle. The principle is, you know, if you can't get two or more of those things to match, then
it's
don't do it.
It's not a gig worth keeping.
It's not a gig worth keeping. You've got to be compatible with the people in the band, especially if it's a covers gig or a wedding gig. It doesn't matter as much because you're getting paid every week, and when money's involved like that, and you're going to get paid, you're I don't know why it shapes people up a little bit. It's like, there's money at stake, but when it's free, people get lazy. Their incentives change a little bit. It's kind of like amateur dramatics. We were talking about that. When there's no money involved and you can't fire someone, that's when problems occur because no one's held accountable for their crap behavior. But if you're in a paid band and you're not pulling your weight, you get fired.
There's stakes.
There's stakes in it. But originals bands, it's very similar to amateur dramatics because you can't really be fired. Although you can be fired, but it would take something really heavy going and big fights. That's why it's always big drama. Yeah. But when you lose your job because if you lost your job for doing something really bad, well, it's your fault. If you did something really bad in work, like you're stealing from your workplace or something like that, then you just fire the person. There's no arguments there. So there's a little bit more at stake, I think. But obviously, most of the people I would say listening to this are originals bands, and that's who we try and speak to. Make sure you judge the people that you're going to be in a band with, and try and get to know them. Be like, do I want to spend time with these people? Do I trust these people at least enough to have a band together? Because I have been in really terrible situations with terrible people in originals bands, and I, looking back, kind of knew that and ignored it because the music was good, and then it just came and bit me afterwards. So yeah. Moving on. Making music in a genre you knew nothing about. So again,
we kind of did that.
yeah. So these are lessons we learned the hard way. So like things that we know not to do. Making music in a genre you know nothing about. So that's basically my entire musical career. I am not a music person, as you know. So
you're the only non-music person like that I know.
So I don't ever try to be like any musical genre. I end up just playing what I want. So I don't really fit in. You wouldn't say, oh yeah, Gavin, he's a metal drummer.
I just call you a drummer.
A drummer, because I don't care about genres. I just play how I like to play. I don't know if it's influenced by
perfect
anything.
Session musician, basically.
I'm a bowl of cornflakes. I'm just unseasoned, unsalted, boiled potato. I'm just food, or I'm just plain. And I don't know. Sometimes you need that. Sometimes you need just simple,
a nice blank slate,
a straight up drum beat. And then, I mean, look at some of the greatest drummers of all time. They were nothing fancy. Like Ringo comes to mind immediately. Like, let the music speak, and the drums are just there to just keep it all together. It's not flamboyant. It's not showy. I don't know. That's just kind of how I play. I'm not a choppy chops guy, you know, like all these fancy rhythms and stuff. I see all these Instagram drummers, and I'm like, all this crazy stuff. Like, I can't do that. I can't do that. I don't have any notion to do that either. But
maybe this is getting off topic. But then again, like, one of the reasons I've kind of just stopped using Instagram, and it was just because everybody that was following, all the stuff that was getting recommended to me, all their drummers just sound the same. They're all just doing the same, like, cicada beat, but you know,
all that stuff, really fast.
You know, it's just like, and all the bass players are doing
slap,
funky, like 16th note things, and I'm like, and slap and things like that, and I'm like, I don't really care. And all the guitarists are the same. It's all neo soul, like, twiddly, like, chordal stuff, and I'm like,
the one that's the most obvious of that I noticed is jazz fusion. To me, the untrained pleb.
Let's hear this hot take.
All jazz fusion music, all of it sounds the same.
Yeah.
Every single one of them sound the same. It sounds like the same band.
Yeah.
Changed my mind.
No, I can't, because you're telling the truth.
I don't know. Like,
it's why I don't listen to jazz fusion.
I had friends who were like really into jazz fusion, and they were like, "Oh, listen to this," and I'm like, "Cool." Oh, listen to this other one, this other band. I'm like, dude, that's the same song.
Like, it's the same drum beat.
No, that's a different band in a different decade playing the same freaking song. Like, all the basses sound the same.
Yeah, and it's like when you get to like around the 80s, when jazz fusion really kicks in, everybody's on the active basses, so
that tone,
I hate
so
it.
honky.
It's bad.
Like six strings.
It's basically everybody trying to be Jacko. Like Jacko had the honky kind of like, chorusy kind of bass sound. That was Jacko's sound. He started that, and then it's kind of annoying because everybody's just. Anyway, we're kind of getting off topic, I think. Making music in a genre you knew nothing about. I think really that's going to be everybody at some point. You don't want to do what, say, the Tramp Stamps did, which is just pick genre because niche
and
money. You know, what a stupid thing to do. You know, let's get involved in like the sort of like riot girl like pop punk scene, which is, you know, prides itself on like talking about the authentic experiences of their band members and like
it's all made up
women and stuff like that. You know, regardless of what you think of that, like that's what they're striving for, and instead just sort of like doing general like, haha, we hate men suck songs, and look at us, we have colored hair because that's what all the kids on TikTok have. Yeah, so bad.
Yeah.
So
it's cringe.
bad. It's honestly, that's the last thing you want to do when you're writing, when you're making music, is cringe. Like, you know, if somebody calls, that's like the ultimate, like, you know,
yeah,
you know, it hurts.
Yeah, I think when I was younger, I say like my past bands were really super fixated on writing for the genre.
Yeah.
But what I've learned now is just to not even think about a genre.
No.
Just let your own influences come out.
Just totally do your own thing. You know, obviously you can't really escape style, you know, and genre to an extent, but don't just write, you know, and follow the conventions of the genre. A good example, because again, lessons that we learned this through Eriska really, which was we started writing stuff and we were like, well, what are other bands that have a similar setup to us, you know, like the sort of rocky Scottish trad bands doing? This only lasted for a wee while, but we were trying to see what they were doing, because we were like, oh, we don't want to, like, I don't know, alien, basically, like, people won't listen to us unless we do this. We then started writing music that had nothing to do with any of the conventions. You know, we're just writing music that we want to write, really, at this point. Like, the two tunes that I've written so far for the band have nothing to do with trad music at all. I've not written a jig. I've not written anything. It's just, here is a tune.
Yeah.
We're going to play it. And that's what people are...
I can't wait to jam your next tune. It sounds great.
I hope we get to jam it today.
Yeah.
Because it's been sitting there for ages.
I love the Sibelius file sounds, the MIDI sounds. It's like 90s Japanese video game music. It's fantastic.
Yeah, I mean, I was watching like a lot of like anime at the time, and listening to a lot of music from that part of the world. So it just sort of creeped in, all those kind of sounds. And
see
things.
How it sounds with that.
Yeah, with actual instruments, I think it's going to sound sick.
Yeah.
But anyway,
what's next?
Oh yes,
letting
promoters rob you blind, mate. This is sad, because I don't know what it's like in the US, if it's similar, but promoters here don't do the job that they're supposed to do. All they do is they put up they put up a couple of posters. Maybe, if that. You know,
they book a gig.
They book a gig. Now, I don't, and they book a gig and then they get you to do all the promoting yourself.
Exactly, yeah. That's what baffled me, because I was like, the promoters asking us, because it wouldn't be me that was dealing with it in the early days, because I would join a band and then someone else would sort it out for me. It wasn't me just doing it. Mm-hmm. And they would be like, oh, the promoter's asking, how many tickets have you sold? How many tickets you guys sold, in the group chats? I've sold 3. Oh, I've sold 5. We need to sell 50. We need to sell 50. Come on, push.
You know what baffles me about this, right? Surely they would make way more money if they just invested a little bit of time and a little bit of effort into actually promoting the gigs and then people would actually come. I don't know. Am I crazy?
So,
am I being naive here?
Well,
is there something I'm missing?
Yes, you are and you aren't. So the issue is unknown bands, no following. Young bands, straight out of high school.
Yeah.
The promoter cannot reach your fans. Only you can reach your fans. That's a good thing for the promoter because they don't have to put in as much work as you do because you can reach your fans, they can't.
But
so that's the argument that they'll use. I'm being devil's advocate here.
Yeah.
So what their excuse is, well, if I promote this, no one's going to buy a ticket to see a band they don't know. But you guys are in touch with your fans, so if you promote it, you'll sell more tickets and make me more money. This is the unfortunate dilemma of the amateur band promoter.
But at the same time, you can't grow unless somebody brings in people.
And takes a chance, yeah.
And takes a chance.
Yeah.
You know, like there are people out there, like we had at our gig, we had loads of walk-ins that never heard of us.
Mm-hmm.
You know, just because we did we promoted our gig. We just put it out there and people... they exist, guys. Just letting you know, there's people that will see a poster. I've not been out in ages. I would be one. I am one of those people. If I see a gig and I'm like, tickets are reasonably priced. I'm free that day. I'm gonna go. Like I am one of those people. I will go,
especially now
to a gig, especially now
because COVID's managed-ish. Gigs are on. People are desperate to go and see gigs again. Like, there's loads of people I know that are going to see lots of bands and gigs because they haven't been able to do it for 18 months. So I think the walk-in thing, we've certainly had gigs where 20%, 30% of the audience were walk-ins. The rest were tickets. And a lot of the walk-ins end up becoming lifelong fans. And they accidentally stumble upon the band. You get it at festivals as well. Obviously, some people come to the venue, the festival to see you, but
a lot of people just go just because
bands,
bands, music, drink, good times.
A good indicator is if you're playing in a tent or something in a festival ground and nobody knows you're playing, and then you start playing and people flock to your music, then that's a great.
You're doing a good job.
Yeah. That helps. So promoters have a somewhat easy job in that regard because their excuse is, well, you can promote it because you're in touch with your fans. But I mean, I've had experiences where I've played like really good venues in Glasgow. Mm-hmm. Maybe like the smaller room of a bigger venue, and we count up our money. So we get all the ticket money from all the tickets we've sold, and you're talking £200, £300, £400. Like, oh, this is really good, brilliant. And then the guitarist disappears with a little money box, the wee Tupperware, disappears to the ticket office, to the promoter, and comes back with like an eighth of it, and this is ours, and we get like a tenner each. It's like, something ain't right here. And that was when I was like 18. I was like, I was like, I wasn't expecting like to be paid for this, but when I see how much money we made, I thought, we're going to get a good percentage here. And you come back, you give them this big wad of cash, and you get back this like tiny little note, and you're like, something's no adding up, something's no right here. Someone's getting too much money.
Yeah. To combat that, I think it's just put on your own gigs, honestly.
Exactly.
You're actually going to... do you need a bit of cash to put on your own gigs? Yes. You need to hire the venue, and you need to get your posters printed and do whatever else you need to do. Maybe spend a bit of money on some online ads, that kind of thing. But...
it should pay for itself.
It should just all pay for itself,
Sometimes it doesn't.
There will be times, like, again, variables. Like 90% of the time, it has worked.
Yeah. Pick a venue that you know you can fill. I mean pack fill.
Yeah.
Don't book a big, huge venue and then half fill it.
Here's another good tip. Talk to people that you know and ask them where's good to play. The best places that you want to get is advice that I got from an older musician who, this is top-notch advice. If you're going to book a venue, book venues that you know have a crowd that comes to them.
Okay, yeah.
Yeah. And book the appropriate venue as well. There's some venues that honestly just have like the same people that turn up every Saturday. Because it's part of their routine, it's part of what they want to do. It's people going to gigs, that's how people like to have fun. Yeah. You're there to help provide entertainment. But yeah, pick a venue that you know you're going that has a good crowd and that puts on the kind of music that you're planning on playing, and you know that kind of music does well. If you're playing stuff that's kind of wacky, excuse me, pick a venue, like have a look at where all the weird acts are, basically, and go for that, because the kind of people that like to listen to something that's a bit off the wall will go there,
Research.
Do a bit of research, and after a while, it's one of these things where, you do a bit of research once and then it's just knowledge and you just have it and you don't need to do it ever again. It's just, you already know where to go, what to do, it just becomes second nature,
Cool. So I think we'll wrap it up there for this half. So this will be part 1. It's going to be a big boy, so we're going to make it a part 1, part 2. So
cool.
Yeah, next week we're gonna do part 2 of lessons we learned the hard way. We've got a good chunk of points still to go. So
yes, I've made a little split in the middle just so we know where to
start, kick
off.
Cool.
Next time.
So we're totally going to record that right now, but let's pretend that we're not. So so pick it up next week for the second half of this. As always, please leave us a review and do all the cool things. Share with your pals. And yeah.
See you next time.
See you next week for part 2.
Bye.